Fantasy novelists, nothing quite loses readers like a high magic system that breaks their immersion. But readers don't actually care about your magic system. They care about a great story. To keep readers invested so they get to the end of your book, avoid these common high magic mistakes. When I say high magic, I mean a world where magic is widespread, commonly known, and deeply embedded in society. It's not just a tool or a fringe ability, but fundamental to how this world operates. It includes worlds populated with all manner of magical creatures or species, too, but having lots of magic in your novel also creates lots of ways to get it wrong and waste your time. I've seen this repeatedly over more than a decade of editing and coaching authors. Unfortunately, these mistakes never go unnoticed by readers because they directly impact their ability to immerse themselves in your story. That's just it. Readers only really care about a great story. Then they start nerding out about the mind-blowing magic system you immerse them in. And it'd better be a solid one to withstand that scrutiny and help you market your book. So, if you want grand scale magic operating at a level of awesome, you need to make it work hard for your story, not the other way around. But that's easier said than done. The good news is that we can tackle these common high magic mistakes through my 3 keys to reader enchantment for solutions that work not only for us as writers, but also on our readers. You can learn more about these keys and how to apply them to every stage of your writing process at the link in the description. So let's use the 3 keys on the first mistake I see authors make. Mistake number 1, world building without a story arc focus. This is really an issue of too much magic that may not be important. You've answered dozens of world building prompts to establish how your magic system works in culture, geography, and economics, yet it's still rather tangential to your plot or character goals. Endless world building question lists about your magic system won't make your novel marketable. You can spend hours mapping out how magic affects politics, trade, and religion, only to realize most of it doesn't really serve your story's arc. Instead of pulling readers in, this kind of overwhelming world building can lead to info dumps, wasted time, and a book that never quite comes together. So why is this bad? Well, either you never really finish writing your story, or if you do, readers can't form clear expectations about your story when they're overloaded with details. Details you might have got a bit lost in yourself. It all makes it hard for readers to engage or connect when they can't form expectations about what's important or where the story is going. They get stuck sorting through information instead of diving into deeper, more intriguing questions about characters, conflicts, and stakes. So, here's what to do instead. Build your magic system and world by starting from your character's arc of transformation to keep it meaningfully focused. Ask yourself how magic enhances, showcases, or even metaphorically represents your protagonist's internal struggle. Tie the magic system, the way it works, what it affects in the world, and how it shapes life, to clear internal conflicts, external character goals, and as a motivator in the plot. This will help you keep the details you do need to go on a world building binge to figure out important and purposeful for your actual story. Mistake number 2, readers can't intuitively grasp your magic's limits. Maybe you skipped the overwhelming world building lists and dove right into writing your high magic story. Good on you, seriously. But you're not off the hook yet. You've likely incorporated magic from inspiration, and it may even significantly impact your plot and characters already. Magical species and abilities galore. However, because you haven't yet done all the necessary world building work, readers don't clearly grasp your magic's limits or capabilities. They might feel overwhelmed by overly complex, inconsistent rules, or frustrated by a system that feels completely arbitrary and not like a system at all. Obviously, this hurts your story due to reader expectations and experience. Readers lose immersion when they're uncertain about what's possible. If anything can happen anytime, or if nothing's clearly defined, they can't form the right kind of expectations about upcoming events. They either mentally check out from confusion or lose interest because tension evaporates if everything feels possible. Without defined limits, creative solutions aren't necessary. Here's what to do instead. Clearly establish fundamental rules and limitations of your magic, whether hard or soft, through concrete storytelling moments, not lengthy exposition. Readers should intuitively grasp what's possible and impossible before critical scenes. Allow rules to emerge naturally during conflicts, intrigue, or tension, helping readers to form expectations organically. Mistake number 3. Magic solves problems too episodically and repetitively. The obstacles your characters face might feel superficial, and the use of magic to resolve them repetitive. I know that, like the many authors I've worked with, you don't mean to commit this faux pas, and you already know it can make you roll your eyes as a reader, but it sneaks in on the best of us when writing because it's hard to break patterns. Yeah, it's just brain science. We don't want things to get too hard for ourselves. Even if each of your magical conflicts seems increasingly difficult, when you really examine your scenes, you might notice that your magic solves each problem in a predictable, formulaic way. Some authors I've coached admit avoiding complexity because they fear they won't know how to write themselves out of it. So problems arise, magic blasts through, and characters carry on episodically without building layered obstacles and tension that would force new and creative ways for their characters to overcome them. This kills reader engagement when magic solves problems too by rote. Readers lose interest. It becomes static and predictable. Readers get bored with it because there's no real ingenuity or character growth. Rather than highlighting deeper themes or driving significant transformation, magic becomes a narrative crutch. Readers subconsciously want to learn from your novel. When magic bypasses the deeper struggle, there's no believable transformation or emotional payoff for readers to experience that lasting impact from. So, what can you do instead? Make sure your magic creates meaningful complications and dilemmas tied directly to your story's themes. The thing you're really trying to say through your book if you get really honest about it. How? In my book coaching program, Enchant Your Readers, we do this through the character arcs specifically. Then, their magic system's impact on the internal arc shows up on the page through the way it personally affects their characters. Characters should grapple emotionally, ethically, or psychologically with the limitations and consequences of their magic. Magic should escalate the stakes or present harder, deeper choices, not just become a habitual solution to keep moving through your draft. Mistake number 4. Magic described without character perspective lens. This is the one where all the workings of your high magic system go a little too textbook, right? But it's more than that. This problem happens when you are trying to be transparent with readers and give them the context they'll need to fully appreciate what's coming in your story. But in doing so, authors often neglect the character perspective lens. Sure, it's there, but then they need to fill in some gaps between what the character knows and what the reader knows through explanation. But even when you add tidbits of how the magic works, when it applies, and seems relevant, you're likely switching out of the character perspective lens in your narration. It becomes more omniscient or distant for a passage. And that's likely not what you've chosen for your narrative distance. Yet, you break out of it temporarily in order to offer the needed context. But this kind of exposition doesn't create connection. Readers won't understand how or why your character cares about this piece of information, or it may not even be a piece of information your point of view character would care about or think to comment on. And readers care when they know how your character cares. The emotional and personal impacts come through your character's perspectives. The magic workings may seem cool, but without emotional resonance, readers won't care deeply. This prevents immersion for the best reader experience. Readers need to emotionally connect to your story by understanding the magic through your character's perspective lens. Everything from how they view the world based on lived experience to the unique expertise or things they're specifically interested in and would notice. If the magic information tidbit doesn't personally matter to your protagonist, emotionally, culturally, or ethically, it won't personally matter to readers either. It's just information without a reason to care. And so that magical story element also loses its meaningful connection in the story. So, here's what you do. Always filter your descriptions and demonstrations of magic through your character's unique perspective, emotions, biases, expertise, and cultural understandings. So if you need readers to understand some fact about your magic, make sure it's something your character would notice or care about in that moment by getting creative, especially if it's not something they would normally notice or care about. Let readers feel what your character feels about the magic: excitement, fear, wonder, or frustration. This deeper emotional connection amplifies reader immersion and makes your magic feel authentic and personal. Mistake number 5, focusing on originality rather than impact. Authors try to invent original magic that ultimately gets overly complex and just unnecessary. In the drive to be unique, authors have to do these creative acrobatics to try to overcome the anxiety of influence. But the truth is that even seemingly new ideas are just novel combinations of existing elements. So I don't know if that helps, but I hope it relieves you from feeling like you have to keep striving toward an impossible level of originality. High magic writers are especially prone to this thinking. But what really matters is whether your magic system serves your story instead of trying to make it original more for its own sake. In fact, if you keep focused on your story's arc and what's going to best enhance or poke at your character's pain points to drive them to the change they need, I can almost guarantee that your magic system, no matter how basic it might start out feeling, is going to naturally become more original. Not for its own sake, but rather because that's what your story uniquely needs. You have to be careful with how unfamiliar your high magic system feels. As brain science has shown, readers need some familiarity. They need that grounding to jump from into more unfamiliar things with you. Too much newness at once just becomes noise without meaning. So balance that experience for your readers. Originality without clarity or deeper purpose in your story leaves readers detached or overwhelmed. How can you do that? Prioritize how your magic system heightens the emotional and thematic impacts of your novel, rather than worrying so much about whether your magic system feels too much like others out there. Of course, that doesn't give anyone permission to plagiarize. I simply mean that when a system based on the elements, for example, seems to work best for your story, but you keep thinking of the other thousand out there that already do that, it's still okay. If it supports your good story, readers will appreciate that more. Some novelty is fun, but depth matters more than uniqueness. When you start building it or refining it from that perspective, I'm sure you'll find ways to add some of the novel to your otherwise fairly familiar system. But don't go all in on crafting a mistake-proof high magic system before you first consider whether it might be better for your story to craft a different type of magic system that has been highly marketable for its rare, secretive magic that creates tantalizing mystery. I'm showing you how to immerse readers fast with a low magic system in my next video on your screen now.